The blood was still fresh on my hands when I realized I was carrying his children. Not one heir. And Marcus Aurelius, the alpha who cast me out like garbage, who told the entire pack I was worthless, who humiliated me in front of everyone I'd ever known. He had no idea what was growing inside me as I stumbled through those freezing woods, exiled and alone. Tell me the city you're watching from so I can send you a hug, because what I'm about to share with you changed everything I thought I knew about power, revenge, and destiny. Let me take you back to the beginning. To the night my world shattered into 1,000 pieces, and I learned that sometimes the cruelest betrayals come from the ones we love most. My name is Livia. I was nobody special in the Silver Moon pack, or at least that's what everyone believed. I was an Omega, the lowest rank, born to serve, bred to submit. My parents died when I was 7, killed in a rogue attack, and I grew up in the pack house doing whatever needed to be done. Cooking, cleaning, mending clothes, tending gardens. Invisible work. Invisible girl. But I had a secret that I held close to my chest, something I never told anyone because I knew they wouldn't believe me, or worse, they'd use it against me. I could sense things. Feel things others couldn't. When someone was lying, I knew it like a bitter taste on my tongue. When danger was coming, my skin would prickle with warning. And sometimes, very rarely, I could touch an object and see fragments of its history, echoes of the emotions that had soaked into it. My grandmother, before she died, told me I had old blood in my veins, ancient blood. She said our line came from the first wolves, the ones who could walk between worlds, who could hear the moon's whispers. But she also warned me to hide it. Omegas with power are either enslaved or eliminated, she'd said, her wrinkled hand gripping mine with surprising strength. Promise me you'll stay hidden until the time is right. Promise. And I kept that promise for 18 years. Until Marcus Aurelius noticed me. He was everything an alpha should be. Tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes like molten gold and hair as dark as midnight. Strong, commanding, confident. When he walked into a room, everyone felt it, that raw power that made you want to either submit or follow him into battle. He'd been alpha for 3 years, taking over when his father died, and he'd led our pack through territory disputes, food shortages, and countless challenges with skill and strength. I never thought he'd look at me twice. Why would he? I was the Omega girl who brought him his breakfast and cleaned his office. One of dozens of forgettable faces in the pack house. But 6 months ago everything changed. It was late autumn, the kind of evening where the air smells like wood smoke and dying leaves. I was in the pack library, dusting shelves when Marcus walked in. He was alone, which was unusual. Alphas always had their betas and warriors around them, their entourage of important people doing important things. He didn't say anything at first, just watched me work. I could feel his gaze like heat on my skin, and my hands started shaking so badly I nearly dropped the book I was holding. "You're Livia," he said finally. Not a question. A statement. "Yes, Alpha." I kept my eyes down, respectful, the way Omegas were supposed to. "Look at me." It wasn't a request. I raised my eyes, and the moment our gazes locked, something inside me shifted, clicked into place. The world seemed to narrow down to just the two of us, and I felt a pull so strong it took my breath away. His eyes widened. He felt it too. "Mate," he whispered, and the word hung in the air between us like a prayer and a curse all at once. I should have been happy, ecstatic. Finding your mate was supposed to be the greatest gift the moon goddess could give. It was fate, destiny, the other half of your soul. But I saw the conflict flash across his face in that instant. Saw the way his jaw tightened, his hands clenched. And I knew, with that bitter certainty that had never steered me wrong, that this wasn't going to be the fairy tale I'd dreamed about as a little girl. "No one can know about this," he said, his voice hard. "Do you understand me? No one." The words cut deeper than any blade. "Alpha, I'm in negotiations for an alliance with the Blackwood Pack. Their alpha has a daughter, Kasha. Beautiful, powerful, from a strong bloodline. The match would secure our borders, strengthen both packs. I can't throw that away for." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. For an Omega. For a nobody. For me. I should have rejected him right then. Should have walked away with whatever dignity I had left. But the mate bond was already forming, already weaving itself through my heart like thorns through a garden, and I was young and stupid and desperately in love with a man who saw me as an inconvenience. "I understand," I whispered. "Good." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Come to my chambers at midnight. Use the servants' entrance. Tell no one." And like a fool I went. For 3 months I was Marcus's secret. His dirty little secret. I'd slip into his rooms when the pack house was sleeping, and he'd claim me with a desperate intensity that made me believe in those dark hours that maybe he actually cared, that maybe he was struggling with the same impossible choice I was. He'd hold me afterwards, trace patterns on my skin, whisper things that sounded almost like promises, almost like love. "You're different from anyone I've ever known," he told me one night. His fingers tangled in my hair. "When I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe. Like I can be myself instead of just the alpha everyone needs me to be." "Then be with me," I pleaded. "Publicly. Tell the pack. We're mates, Marcus. That means something. That means everything." But he'd always stiffen, pull away. "You don't understand politics. You don't understand what's at stake. The Blackwood Alliance isn't just about me. It's about hundreds of wolves who depend on this pack for safety, for food, for survival. I have to think about them. And what about us? What about the bond? The bond is just biology, Livia. Just chemicals and instinct. Leadership requires more than that. It requires sacrifice." I should have heard the warning in those words. Should have understood that when he talked about sacrifice, he meant me. The secret couldn't last forever. Secrets in a pack house never do. Someone always sees something, hears something, smells something they shouldn't. And wolves love to gossip almost as much as they love to hunt. It was Decimus, one of Marcus's betas, who caught us. He came to deliver an urgent message late one night and found me leaving Marcus's chambers, my hair messed, my lips swollen, my scent mingled with the alphas in a way that told the whole story. His eyes went cold. Well, the little Omega's been busy." "Decimus, it's not," I started, but he was already pushing past me into Marcus's room. I heard their voices, sharp and angry. Heard Decimus say something about jeopardizing everything, and think with your head instead of your. When I was summoned to Marcus's office the next morning, I knew it was over. I could feel it in the way the other Omegas looked at me, with a mixture of pity and schadenfreude. Could feel it in the hostile stares of the higher-ranking wolves as I walked through the halls. Marcus wasn't alone. He'd assembled his entire council. 7 of his most trusted advisors and warriors, all watching me with cold eyes as I entered. "Livia." Marcus's voice was formal, distant. The voice of an alpha addressing a subordinate, not a mate speaking to his other half. "There have been accusations made against you. Serious accusations." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break my ribs. "What accusations, Alpha?" Decimus stepped forward, a cruel smile playing at his lips. "That you've been using Omega seduction techniques to manipulate the Alpha. That you've been sneaking into his private chambers. That you've been attempting to trap him with false mate bond claims." "False." The word came out as a whisper. I looked at Marcus, desperate for him to say something, to defend me, to tell them the truth. "Marcus, tell them. Tell them we're." "Enough." His voice cracked like a whip. "I will not have you address me with such familiarity. I am your alpha, and you will show proper respect." Something inside me started to break. "Alpha Marcus, please. You know the bond is real. You feel it. You felt it from the beginning. I feel nothing for you beyond the basic responsibility any alpha has for their pack members." His eyes were like ice. Golden ice that froze everything they touched. "You are an Omega who has overstepped her bounds. Who has thrown yourself at me, invaded my privacy, and attempted to manipulate me with fantasies of mate bonds that don't exist. That's not true." Tears were streaming down my face now, hot and humiliating. "You came to me. You told me we were mates. You made me believe. I made you believe nothing. If I showed you any kindness, any attention, you clearly misinterpreted it. He leaned back in his chair, every inch the powerful Alpha passing judgment on an insignificant subordinate. You're not the first Omega to develop an infatuation with their Alpha. It's pathetic, but it's common. The council members nodded, murmuring agreement. None of them would question their Alpha. None of them cared about the truth. However, Marcus continued, his voice carrying that formal tone that made everything worse, I might be willing to overlook this indiscretion. The Silver Moon Pack believes in mercy for those who recognize their mistakes. Hope fluttered weakly in my chest. I'll do anything. Whatever you want. I just reject the fantasy of this mate bond. Publicly. Admit that you made it up, that you deluded yourself. And accept your punishment with grace. Punishment. 30 lashes. Public. In the main square at sundown. A reminder to all Omegas about the consequences of overreaching their station. The room spun. 30 lashes could kill someone my size, or at minimum leave me scarred and broken for life. And after that, I managed to ask. After that, you'll continue serving the pack as you always have. We'll consider the matter closed. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth written in every line of his face. He wasn't struggling with this decision. Wasn't torn between duty and love. He'd made his choice the moment Decimus caught us, maybe even before that. I was the sacrifice he was willing to make for his precious alliance. His political games, his image. No, I said quietly. Marcus raised an eyebrow. No, I won't reject the truth. I won't lie and say the bond doesn't exist. I won't let you pretend you didn't feel it, didn't act on it, didn't tell me things in the dark that you're too cowardly to admit in the light. His face darkened with rage. You dare. I dare. Strength I didn't know I had was flowing through me now, hot and bright. Maybe it was the old blood my grandmother talked about. Maybe it was just dignity finally overcoming fear. I dare because I have nothing left to lose. You've already decided to destroy me. At least let me keep my truth. Then you leave me no choice. Marcus stood, and the power radiating from him made everyone in the room flinch. Everyone except me. I was done flinching. Livia, former member of the Silver Moon Pack, I hereby exile you. You have until sundown to gather whatever you can carry. If you're found within our territory after that, you will be killed on sight. And any pack that takes you in will be considered our enemy. Exile. The worst punishment short of execution. To be cast out from your pack was to lose everything. Your home, your family, your protection, your identity. Lone wolves rarely survived more than a few months. They went feral or starved or were killed by rogues or rival packs. Take her to the holding cells until sundown, Marcus ordered. And spread the word. Let everyone know what happens to Omegas who try to rise above their station. 2 warriors grabbed my arms. I didn't struggle. What was the point? As they dragged me away, I looked back one last time at the man I'd thought was my soulmate. He was already turning away, already moving on to his next meeting, his next decision, his next political calculation. I hadn't even been important enough to hold his attention for the full duration of my sentencing. The holding cell was cold and damp, more of a stone closet than a proper room. They left me there with nothing but my thoughts and my breaking heart. I don't know how long I sat there in the darkness. Hours maybe. Long enough for the shock to wear off and the reality to set in. Long enough to cry until I had no tears left, until my body was just making these horrible dry gasping sounds. And that's when I felt it. Flutter so faint I almost missed it. A presence inside me that wasn't just me. My hand went to my stomach, pressing against the fabric of my simple dress. It couldn't be. We'd been careful. Marcus had always been so careful because he couldn't risk getting an Omega pregnant, couldn't risk a bastard heir complicating his political plans. But the feeling was unmistakable. I was a healer's daughter before I was an orphan, and I'd helped deliver enough babies to know the signs. The slight nausea I'd been attributing to stress. The tenderness in my breasts. The way certain smells had started bothering me. And it wasn't just one presence I felt. There were two distinct sparks of life. Two tiny heartbeats synchronizing with my own. Twins. I was carrying Marcus Aurelius's twin heirs. And he had just exiled me to die alone in the wilderness. The laugh that escaped my throat was half sob, half something darker. The moon goddess had a twisted sense of humor. Here was the mate bond's gift, the ultimate proof of our connection, growing inside me at the exact moment he was throwing me away. I could tell them. Could call out, demand to see Marcus again, tell him about the babies. By pack law, heirs, even bastard heirs, had rights. He'd have to take me back or at least provide for me. But even as the thought formed, I rejected it. Going back to Marcus now, pregnant and desperate, would make me everything he'd accused me of being. A manipulative omega using biology to trap an alpha. I'd be kept alive for the babies, but hated and resented. And once the twins were born, what then? Would they take my children and exile me again? Raise them to despise their omega mother? Well, I wouldn't give Marcus that power. I wouldn't give him my children, which meant I had to survive. Somehow, against all odds, I had to make it through exile long enough to give birth to these babies. And then I had to raise them, protect them, give them the life they deserved. When the guards came to release me at sunset, I was ready. They gave me a small pack with some basic supplies. A blanket, a knife, a water skin, some dried meat. Mercy from whoever had assembled it. Probably one of the other omegas who felt sorry for me. The entire pack was assembled to watch me leave. It was meant to be a spectacle, a lesson. Marcus stood at the front, with Kasia beside him. She was everything I wasn't. Tall, beautiful, confident. Her bloodline written in every graceful movement. She looked at me with cool indifference, like I was an insect beneath her notice. "Livia," Marcus said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. "You are hereby cast out from the Silver Moon Pack. May the moon goddess have mercy on your soul." I wanted to say something dramatic. Something that would haunt him, make him regret this. But the only words that came to me were simple and true. "You'll regret this, Marcus Aurelius. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday. You'll look back on this moment and realize what you threw away." He laughed. Actually laughed. "The only thing I'm throwing away is a delusional omega who couldn't accept her place. Goodbye, Livia. I won't think of you again." And maybe he meant it. Maybe to him I really was that forgettable. But I looked at Kasia when I said my next words, looked her dead in the eyes. "He'll betray you too, eventually. That's what he does. He uses people and throws them away when they're no longer convenient. Remember that." Then I turned and walked into the forest, my head high, my hand unconsciously protective over my still flat stomach. I didn't look back. The first week of exile nearly killed me. I'd grown up in a pack house, soft and sheltered despite my low rank. I knew how to cook food that was given to me, but not how to hunt it. Knew how to tend gardens, but not how to identify which wild plants were edible and which were poisonous. I made mistakes. Ate something that made me violently sick for 2 days. Cut my hand badly trying to fashion a shelter and developed an infection. Got turned around in the woods and walked in circles until I was so exhausted I collapsed. But every time I thought about giving up, about just lying down in the leaves and letting nature take its course, I'd feel those 2 little sparks of life inside me. Growing stronger every day. Depending on me. Couldn't quit. I wouldn't. Slowly, painfully, I learned. I watched what the birds and small animals ate, figured out which berries were safe. I found a cave that offered some protection from the elements and made it my base. I practiced with a knife until I could catch fish from the stream, then rabbits, then larger prey. My grandmother's old blood started waking up, helping me survive. I could sense when predators were near. Could find water by following a feeling more than any visible sign. Could sometimes predict weather changes hours before they happened. And my body changed. Pregnancy should have made me weaker, more vulnerable. But instead I felt myself growing stronger. The twins inside me seemed to be feeding me power instead of draining it. My senses sharpened. My reflexes quickened. Even my healing accelerated. That infected cut on my hand that should have taken weeks to recover from was gone in days. One night, about 2 months into my exile, I was sitting by my small fire when I heard footsteps. My whole body tensed, ready to fight or flee. A lone wolf couldn't afford to trust strangers. But the old woman who stepped into the firelight wasn't a threat. She was tiny, hunched, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see through everything. "Peace, child," she said, her voice creaky but kind. "I mean you no harm. My name is Sybil, and I've been looking for you." "Looking for me?" Kept my knife close just in case. "Why?" "Because the moon goddess speaks to those who listen, and she's been whispering your name for weeks now." Sybil settled herself by my fire without waiting for invitation. "She says you carry something precious. Something that will change the fate of all the packs." My hand went protectively to my stomach, which was just starting to show a small curve. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" She smiled, and it was gentle, understanding. "I was a seer once for the Northern Pack. Then I got old and my visions became inconvenient truths instead of helpful guidance, so they cast me out. Been wandering these woods for 3 years now, living off the land and listening to the goddess." "And what does the goddess say about me?" "That you're stronger than you know. That the babes you carry aren't just any heirs, they're special. Mark. The boy will have the strength of 10 alphas, and the girl will have gifts like yours, only magnified. Together, they'll either unite the packs or destroy them. It all depends on how they're raised." Chills ran down my spine. "You're saying my children are some kind of prophecy?" "I'm saying they're important. And so are you." Sybil pulled a small pouch from her robes. "Here. Herbs that will help with the pregnancy, keep you and the babes healthy. And I'll teach you what I know about surviving out here, about using the gifts the moon goddess gave you." I should have been suspicious. Should have wondered if this was some trick, some trap. But something in Sybil's eyes told me she was genuine. And I desperately needed help. "Why would you do this for me?" "Because I was young once, and cast out by someone I trusted. Because I know what it's like to be thrown away and told you're worthless." Her weathered hand patted mine. "And because you're going to need to be very strong for what's coming, child. The Alpha who rejected you made a powerful enemy today, even if he doesn't know it yet." Sybil stayed with me for 3 months, teaching me everything she knew. How to use my gifts without exhausting myself. How to sense danger before it arrived. How to communicate with animals, to ask the forest for its help instead of just taking from it. She taught me about my bloodline too, confirmed what my grandmother had hinted at. I was descended from the first wolves, the ones who walked before the packs formed, when shifters were still learning to balance their human and animal natures. That blood gave me abilities most modern wolves had lost. The capacity for magic, for seeing beyond the veil, for bending the natural world to my will. "Most wolves have forgotten what we used to be," Sybil explained as we practiced calling the wind. "They think being strong just means having big muscles and sharp teeth. But the ancient wolves understood that true power comes from balance. From harmony with nature and the goddess. That's what your children will have. That's what makes them so dangerous to people like Marcus Aurelius." "What do you mean, dangerous?" "Alphas like him built their power on hierarchy. On keeping omegas down, on maintaining strict ranks and rules. But your children won't fit in those boxes. They'll be living proof that omega blood can produce something stronger than any alpha bloodline. That will terrify people who depend on the old ways." I thought about that a lot as my pregnancy progressed. About what it would mean to raise children who didn't fit the mold. Who would challenge everything the packs believed about rank and worth and power. When my time came, I was alone. Sybil had left a week earlier, saying the goddess was calling her elsewhere, that our paths would cross again when they were meant to. I'd cried, begging her to stay, but she'd been firm. "You need to do this part on your own," she'd said. "You need to know you're strong enough. Trust yourself, Livia. Trust the goddess. Trust your babes." The labor lasted all through the night. I'd helped deliver babies before, but experiencing it myself was something else entirely. Pain like nothing I'd ever imagined, waves of it that made me scream and curse and pray. But I also felt power. With each contraction, I could feel the twins' strength joining with mine, helping me through. I could feel the forest responding to my need, sending calming energy, wrapping around me like a protective embrace. When the sun rose, I held two perfect babies in my arms. A boy and a girl, just as Sybil had predicted. The boy came first. He was big, strong, with a full head of dark hair like his father and eyes that already showed flecks of gold. I named him Maximus, because he would need to be the greatest version of himself to survive in this world. The girl was smaller, quieter, with my auburn hair and eyes that shifted between green and silver depending on the light. I named her Aurora, for the dawn, for new beginnings, for the light that comes after the darkest night. They were beautiful, perfect, and in that moment, holding my children as the sun streamed through the cave entrance, I made a vow. I would raise them to be strong, to be unashamed of their Omega mother and their mixed heritage, to know their worth regardless of what any pack said about rank or station. And someday when they were ready, I would take them back to the Silver Moon pack. Not begging for acceptance, not crawling back in defeat, but standing tall and proud. I would make Marcus Aurelius see what he'd thrown away. Make him understand the magnitude of his mistake. Not for revenge, though I'd be lying if I said that didn't appeal to me, but because my children deserved to know where they came from. Deserved the chance to claim their heritage if they wanted it. The first year was the hardest. Newborn twins in a cave in the woods, with no pack support, no help, no backup plan. Barely slept. Every sound made me jump, terrified it was a predator coming for my babies. Every fever or fussy night convinced me I was failing them, that they'd have been better off if I'd told Marcus about the pregnancy. Let him take them and raise them in safety even if I had to watch from a distance. But we survived. More than survived, we thrived. The twins grew fast, stronger and healthier than any babies I'd ever seen. By 6 months, Maximus was trying to shift, little waves of power rippling under his skin. Aurora's gifts manifested as an ability to soothe any creature we encountered, even aggressive predators becoming docile when she cooed at them. And I grew too. Became the mother I needed to be. The provider, the protector, the teacher. I hunted and cooked and built us a better shelter. I kept us hidden from passing packs, used my gifts to create wards that would make other wolves instinctively avoid our territory. We lived isolated but not lonely. The forest was our pack. The animals were our friends. And we had each other. When the twins were 2, I started telling them stories. Not fairy tales but truths. About where they came from. About their father, the powerful Alpha who didn't know they existed. About the pack that had cast me out. Will we ever meet him? Maximus asked, his little face serious. He was always serious, always thinking, always asking questions. Someday, I promised. When you're ready. When you're strong enough to face him without fear. I'm not afraid of anyone, he declared, puffing out his chest. Aurora, always more perceptive, looked at me with those shifting eyes. Is he afraid of us, Mama? The question hit me like a blow. What makes you say that, my love? Because people who throw other people away are afraid. That's what you always say. They're afraid of anything that makes them feel small. Smart girl. Too smart. I pulled both my children close. Yes, Aurora. I think your father was very afraid. Afraid of what it would mean to love an Omega. Afraid of what the pack would say. Afraid of losing the power and respect he'd built. That's stupid, Maximus said firmly. Love should make you brave, not scared. You're absolutely right. And that's why you too will be better than him. Because I'm raising you to be brave. The years passed. 3 years for 5. The twins grew like weeds, strong and wild and beautiful. I trained them in everything I knew, everything Sybil had taught me. Combat, survival, how to use their gifts. Maximus developed the strength Sybil had predicted, able to lift boulders by age 6. his shifting so smooth and controlled it was eerie for someone so young. Aurora's empathic abilities grew to the point where she could sense emotions from miles away, could read people like open books. But I also taught them kindness, compassion, how to use their power to protect, not just dominate. Because I'd seen what happened when strong wolves forgot their humanity. I'd lived through it. We weren't completely alone. Other outcasts found us over the years. A young wolf who'd been exiled for challenging an unjust alpha. An omega who'd run away from an abusive mate. A beta who'd lost his pack to a rival attack. We formed our own little family of misfits, our own miniature pack in the woods. And slowly I started hearing stories from them. Stories about the Silver Moon Pack. About Marcus Aurelius. He'd married Cassia just as planned. The alliance had gone through. The pack was prosperous, powerful, secure. But there was trouble. Cassia couldn't get pregnant. Year after year, no heir. And an alpha without an heir was an alpha in a vulnerable position. Other packs were starting to circle, sensing weakness. The council was getting restless, muttering about bloodlines and succession. Some said Marcus regretted his marriage. That he'd grown cold toward Cassia, distant. That he'd been heard saying he'd made a mistake, though no one knew what mistake he meant. And sometimes the stories said, he'd go into the woods alone. Just walk into the forest for hours, like he was searching for something. Or someone. I told myself I didn't care. That he'd made his choice and I'd made mine. That I'd moved past him, past the pain, past the rejection. But late at night, when the twins were sleeping and the fire was burning low, I'd think about him. Wonder if he ever thought about me. If he felt the pull of the bond that I'd never been able to fully sever, that still ached in my chest sometimes like a phantom limb. And I'd touch the scar over my heart, the one I'd carved myself during a dark moment when the twins were infants. A ritual Sybil had taught me to bind the mate bond, to keep it from driving me insane with longing while still preserving it. Because someday I might need that connection. Might need to use it. When the twins turned 6, I knew it was time to start preparing for what came next. They were strong, capable, confident. But they needed to understand the world beyond our forest. Needed to know what they'd face if they ever claimed their heritage. So I started taking them closer to pack territories. Let them observe from a distance, see how packs operated. See the hierarchies, the politics, the power structures. Maximus hated it. They're all playing pretend, he said after watching an alpha ceremony. Acting like being born a certain rank makes them special. It's stupid. It's the world we live in, I corrected gently. And if you want to change it, you need to understand it first. Aurora was more thoughtful. They're afraid, Mama. All of them. The alphas are afraid of losing power. The omegas are afraid of being hurt. Everyone's just scared and pretending they're not. She was right. And it made me sad that my 6-year-old could see what most adult wolves refused to acknowledge. We also started training harder. Not just physical combat but strategy. Diplomacy. How to read people, manipulate situations, play the political games that Marcus had used against me. Because if my children were going to survive in the pack world, they needed every advantage. Why are we learning all this? Maximus asked one day, frustrated after a particularly difficult lesson in negotiation tactics. Because one day you're going to have a choice, I said. You can either live out here with me, free and wild and safe, or you can claim what's rightfully yours. The Silver Moon Pack is your heritage, your father's legacy. If you want it, you'll need to be strong enough to take it. Do you want us to take it? Aurora asked quietly. Thought about that. About what I actually wanted. I want you to be happy. I want you to be safe. I want you to live in a world where no one can make you feel small or worthless or disposable. I met both their eyes. If claiming your heritage helps that, then yes. If it doesn't, then no. The choice will always be yours. But you want to see him again, Maximus said. Not a question. He'd always been perceptive about my feelings. Our father. You want to face him. I do, I admitted. Not because I want him back. Not because I need his acceptance or his love, but because I want him to see what he lost. I want him to understand the cost of his choices. Is that petty? Maybe. But it's honest. The twins exchanged a look, one of those silent communications that siblings develop. Then Maximus grinned, fierce and wild. Then let's start planning. Because when we walk back into that pack, we're going to make an entrance he'll never forget. We spent the next year preparing. Not just training but gathering information. I sent our little pack of outcasts to nearby territories, told them to listen and learn. To find out everything about the current state of the Silver Moon Pack, about Marcus's position, about the political landscape. What we learned was interesting. Marcus's marriage to Cassia was falling apart. She blamed him for their lack of heirs, convinced he was the problem even though pack doctors found nothing wrong with either of them. She'd been taking lovers, flaunting them, trying to provoke him into some kind of reaction. He mostly ignored her, focused on pack business, but the tension was causing fractures in the pack structure. The alliance with the Blackwood pack was strained. Cassia's father was disappointed in the lack of grandchildren, had started making noises about dissolving the marriage and reclaiming his daughter. If that happened, Marcus would lose both the alliance and a significant chunk of territory that had been Cassia's dowry. The council was divided. Some supported Marcus, believed he was still the strong alpha they needed. Others thought it was time for new blood, were looking at Marcus's younger brother as a potential replacement. And there were rumors. Whispers that Marcus would disappear into his office sometimes and just stare at nothing. That he'd been asking questions about what happened to exiled wolves, whether any had survived. That he'd forbidden anyone from speaking my name, which only made people more curious about who I'd been and what I'd meant to him. He was unraveling. Slowly, quietly, but definitely unraveling. He feels the mate bond, Aurora said when I shared this information. Even if he denied it, even if he tried to ignore it, it's still there. And it's eating at him. She was right. The bond couldn't be truly severed unless both parties rejected it. And I'd never spoken the words of rejection. Neither had Marcus. Which meant somewhere deep in his chest, he felt the same hollow ache I did. The same sense of something missing, something wrong. But let him hurt. Let him wonder. Let him live with the consequences of throwing away his mate. When the twins turned 7, I knew we were ready. They were strong enough, smart enough, controlled enough. And the timing was perfect. The Silver Moon Pack was having their annual Moon Festival, a 3-day celebration where neighboring packs were invited, where challenges could be issued, where political alliances were forged and broken. It was the perfect stage for our return. We spent weeks preparing. I used every skill I had, every bit of magic I'd learned, to craft the perfect entrance. I wanted Marcus to see us and immediately understand what he'd lost. Wanted the entire pack to witness his reckoning. The night before we left, I sat with the twins by our fire one last time. "Are you sure about this?" asked them. "Once we step into that territory, there's no going back. Everything changes." "I'm sure," Maximus said immediately. He'd been waiting for this his whole life, had built himself into a warrior specifically for this moment. Aurora took longer to answer, her empathic nature making her more cautious. But finally she nodded. "I'm sure. Not because I want to hurt anyone but because we deserve to exist in the world. We deserve to be seen. And if that makes some people uncomfortable, that's their problem, not ours." Wise beyond her years. Both of them were. Then tomorrow, we reclaim what's ours. The Moon Festival was in full swing when we arrived. The central square of the Silver Moon Pack territory was decorated with lights and flowers, filled with wolves from multiple packs laughing and drinking and celebrating. Music played, food was abundant, and everyone was relaxed and happy. Perfect. I'd used magic to enhance our appearance. Not to change us but to make sure we were seen. Really seen. I wore a dress I'd crafted from materials I'd gathered and traded for. Deep green like the forest with silver embroidery that caught the light. My hair, longer now, fell in waves down my back. I looked nothing like the frightened Omega girl who'd been exiled 7 years ago. And the twins. Gods, the twins were magnificent. Maximus wore simple but well-made clothes, and even at 7 he carried himself like a warrior, like an alpha. His resemblance to Marcus was striking. The same dark hair, the same golden eyes, the same commanding presence. Aurora wore blue like the sky at dawn, and she'd inherited my coloring but with an otherworldly quality that made people stare. Her silver-green eyes seemed to glow, and there was something about her that made everyone around her feel calm, safe, drawn in. We walked through the crowd, and conversations stopped. People turned to look, whispered to each other, tried to figure out who we were. I kept my head high, my children close, and moved with purpose toward the center of the square where Marcus was holding court. He was on a raised platform with Cassia beside him, both of them dressed in formal alpha attire. He looked older than I remembered, tired, with lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. But still handsome, still powerful, still very much the alpha. When his eyes landed on me, I watched him freeze. Watched the color drain from his face. Watched his hand grip the arm of his chair so hard the wood cracked. He recognized me. Even after 7 years, even though I'd changed, he knew me instantly. And then his gaze dropped to the children beside me, and I watched understanding hit him like a physical blow. Watched him see Maximus's face, so like his own. Watched him register Aurora's age, do the math, realize what it meant. The entire square had gone silent now. Everyone was watching this drama unfold, sensing something momentous was happening even if they didn't understand what. I climbed the steps to the platform, the twins following. Guards moved to stop us, but Marcus held up a hand. His eyes never leaving mine. Livia. My name came out as barely a whisper. Alpha Marcus. I kept my voice formal, polite, but with an edge of steel. I hope we're not intruding on your celebration. We've traveled a long way. You're alive. Disappointed. I smiled, and it wasn't kind. Yes, I survived. Thrived even. Against all odds, against everything you did to destroy me, I'm still here. Cassia stood, her face furious. Who is this Omega, Marcus? Why is she addressing you so familiarly? Before Marcus could answer, I spoke. I'm Livia. 7 years ago, your husband exiled me from this pack. Accused me of lying about being his mate. Cast me out to die. I gestured to the twins. These are my children. Maximus and Aurora. Say hello to your father, my loves. The gasps from the crowd were audible. Cassia's face went white, then red with rage. Marcus looked like he might be sick. That's impossible, Cassia stammered. He can't have children. We've been trying for 7 years and... Oh, he can have children, I said pleasantly. Just not with you. Because you're not his mate. The bond he denied, the connection he tried to pretend didn't exist, it was real. And these twins are the proof. Marcus finally found his voice. Get out. Before I have you killed. You won't kill me. I met his eyes, let him see the power in mine. Because if you do, you'll be murdering the mother of your legitimate heirs. And everyone here is watching. Everyone here now knows that you have 2 healthy, strong children. That you've been childless all these years not because you couldn't produce heirs, but because you rejected your true mate. Maximus stepped forward, and even at 7, he radiated authority. I am Maximus Aurelius, son of Marcus Aurelius, Alpha of the Silver Moon Pack. By blood and by right, I claim my heritage. Aurora joined him, her voice softer but no less powerful. I am Aurora Aurelia, daughter of Marcus Aurelius and Livia. I claim my heritage. The crowd was in chaos now. Wolves arguing, shouting, demanding explanations. Other alphas from visiting packs were watching with intense interest, recognizing the political implications. This wasn't just family drama. This was a succession crisis, a legitimacy question, a scandal that would reverberate through all the packs. Marcus stood slowly, power radiating from him. You have no right. I have every right. My voice rang out, amplified by the magic I'd been holding back. You may have exiled me, but you never severed the mate bond. You never officially rejected me. Which means I am still your mate by the laws of the moon goddess. And these children are your legitimate heirs, with more claim to your position than any children Kasha could have given you. Lies! Kasha shrieked. She's lying. Those aren't his children. They're some random bastards she's trying to pass off. They're mine. Marcus's voice was hollow, defeated. I can feel it. The bond, the blood connection. They're mine. The admission sent another wave of shock through the crowd. Kasha turned on him, fury and hurt and betrayal written across her face. You told me you couldn't sense the mate bond. You said it was broken, that you had no mate. You lied to me. You made me think I was the problem when all along. You were a political arrangement, Marcus said, his voice flat. You always knew that. Our marriage was about the alliance, not love. But you let me believe there could be more. You let me try, year after year, to give you children when you already had them. When you'd thrown away your real mate for me. Kasha's hands were shaking. I could have married someone who actually wanted me. Could have had a real family. Instead I wasted 7 years on you. She turned and walked off the platform, her father and pack members following. The Blackwood contingent left the festival entirely, and I knew that alliance was finished. Marcus had just lost his political marriage and the territory that came with it. But I wasn't done. This wasn't just about humiliating Marcus. This was about securing my children's future. I invoke the right of challenge, I called out, my voice carrying across the square. As the mother of Marcus Aurelius's heirs, as his true mate, I challenge his leadership of this pack. More gasp. A challenge was serious business, especially from an Omega. But the laws were clear. A true mate had that right, and if the heirs were acknowledged, their mother's status elevated regardless of her birth rank. Marcus's face was unreadable. You want to fight me. Livia, you can't. Not me. I smiled and stepped back. Maximus. Show them what you can do. My son stepped forward, and I felt the pride surge through me. He was 7 years old, but he'd trained every day of his life. He had his father's alpha blood and my ancient magic. He was ready. I'm too young to be alpha, Maximus said clearly. But I'm not too young to prove that I'm strong, that my blood is pure, that I have the right to be here. He looked at Marcus. Fight me. If you win, we leave and never come back. If I win, you acknowledge us. Publicly. Give us a place in this pack. I'm not fighting a child, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then you're admitting you're weak, Maximus taunted. Afraid of a 7-year-old. Some alpha you are. The crowd murmured. This was good theater, but it was also testing Marcus's authority. If he backed down, he'd look weak. If he fought and lost to a child, he'd look weaker. Either way, his position was compromised. Fine, Marcus said finally. But not here. The training grounds. And I won't hurt him seriously. You'll fight for real, I said. Or what's the point? My son can handle himself. We moved to the training grounds, the entire festival following. Someone had already set up a fighting ring, eager for the spectacle. Marcus removed his formal robes, down to simple fighting clothes. Maximus did the same. They faced each other across the ring, and I saw Marcus really look at his son for the first time. Saw him register the resemblance, the way Maximus held himself, the determination in those golden eyes. I don't want to hurt you, Marcus said quietly. Then don't hold back, Maximus replied. I want to beat you at your best, not because you went easy on me. The fight began, and it was beautiful and terrible to watch. Marcus was stronger, more experienced, fighting with the skill of decades. But Maximus was fast, unpredictable, and completely fearless. He took hits that should have felled him and kept coming. Used his smaller size to his advantage, slipping under Marcus's defenses. And he was learning. In real time, I could see him adapting to Marcus's style, figuring out patterns, exploiting weaknesses. The crowd was screaming, half for Marcus, half for this impossible child who was holding his own against an alpha. Aurora stood beside me, her hand in mine. Her empathic gifts keeping Maximus calm and focused even in the chaos of battle. The fight lasted 20 minutes. Finally Maximus made his move. He feinted left, dropped low, and swept Marcus's legs out from under him. Before Marcus could recover, Maximus had shifted partially, his child's hand becoming a wolf's paw with claws at Marcus's throat. "Yield," Maximus said. The training ground was silent. Marcus looked up at his son, and I saw something break in his eyes. Pride maybe, or regret, or just shock that he'd been beaten by a 7-year-old. "I yield," he said hoarsely. Maximus stepped back, offering his hand to help Marcus up. Marcus took it, let his son pull him to his feet, and stood there staring at him. "How?" Marcus asked. "How did you train him like this?" "I taught him everything you taught me to hide," I said, walking into the ring. "The strength that comes from accepting who you are instead of denying it. The power of the old blood that flows through omega veins. The magic you all forgot when you decided strength only meant physical dominance." I turned to address the crowd. For too long, the packs have operated on a lie. The lie that omegas are weak, that we're only good for service and breeding. But I am omega, and I survived 7 years of exile. I am omega, and I raised 2 of the strongest children you'll ever see. I am omega, and I am Marcus Aurelius's true mate, whether he wants to admit it or not. Aurora joined me and her brother in the ring. "We don't want to take over the pack," she said, her sweet voice somehow reaching everyone. "We just want to be recognized. To exist. To prove that bloodline doesn't determine worth." The crowd was murmuring, arguing, processing. This was everything they thought they knew about pack hierarchy being challenged. Some looked angry, threatened. Others looked thoughtful, intrigued. Marcus's beta, Decimus, the one who'd caught us all those years ago, pushed through the crowd. "This is ridiculous. An omega and her bastard children don't get to come in here and demand recognition. It doesn't matter if they're his blood. They were born in exile outside the pack. They have no legal standing." "Actually," came a creaky voice from the edge of the crowd, "they do." Sybil stepped into the light, and I felt tears spring to my eyes. The old seer had promised we'd meet again, and here she was, right when I needed her. "Who are you?" Decimus demanded. "I am Sybil, formerly seer to the northern pack, now a servant of the moon goddess." She walked slowly to the center of the ring, her old eyes bright with purpose. "And I was there when these twins were born. I witnessed their first breath, saw the gifts the goddess bestowed upon them. They are marked by fate, chosen by powers older than any of your pack laws." He turned to Marcus. "You made a choice 7 years ago, Alpha. You chose political gain over the mate bond. You chose convenience over destiny. And the moon goddess does not forget such things." "The goddess doesn't care about omega politics," Decimus scoffed. "The goddess cares about balance," Sybil corrected. "For too long the packs have been out of balance. Alphas hoarding power, omegas oppressed and forgotten, the old ways lost. These twins represent a chance to restore what was lost. The boy has alpha strength combined with omega magic. The girl has omega empathy combined with alpha authority. They are perfect balance." She looked around at the assembled wolves. "And they are a test. Will you embrace the new path they represent? Or will you cling to the old ways until they destroy you?" It was perfect timing, perfect theater. Sybil had always known how to make an entrance. Marcus looked lost, overwhelmed. "What do you want from me?" he asked, and I wasn't sure if he was talking to me, to Sybil, or to the moon goddess herself. "Acknowledge your children," I said simply. "Give them their birthright. Let them choose whether they want to be part of this pack or not. And," I paused, "acknowledge me. Not as your mate necessarily. Not as your Luna. But as someone who deserves to exist. Who deserves respect. Who was wronged by you and deserves that wrong to be made right. And if I don't, then we leave and you lose any chance of knowing your children. You lose the strongest potential heirs any alpha has produced in generations. You lose the opportunity to show your pack that you can admit a mistake and correct it. I stepped closer. And you live the rest of your life knowing you threw away your mate and your children twice. The silence stretched. I could feel the entire crowd holding their breath, waiting to see what Marcus would do. Finally, he turned to face the assembled wolves. 7 years ago I made a mistake. I was young, arrogant, and I thought political power mattered more than the mate bond. I was wrong. His voice strengthened. Livia was my mate. I rejected her, exiled her, tried to pretend she didn't exist. And in doing so, I rejected these children before I even knew about them. He looked at Maximus and Aurora. You are my heirs, my legitimate children. And you have every right to be here, to claim your place in this pack if you want it. And their mother, someone called from the crowd. Marcus met my eyes, and I saw real remorse there. Maybe not love, not anymore, but at least honest regret. Livia is under the protection of the Silver Moon Pack. Anyone who harms her or speaks against her answers to me. She may come and go as she pleases, and her status is that of the Alpha's true mate, regardless of whether we complete the bond. It wasn't everything. It wasn't an apology or a declaration of love or a plea for forgiveness. But it was acknowledgement. It was respect. It was recognition that I existed, that I mattered, that he'd been wrong. It was enough. For now. Thank you, I said formally. Then I turned to my children. What do you want to do? Maximus looked around the pack territory, at the assembled wolves, at his father. I want to stay. For a while. Learn about this world, this pack. See if it's something I want to be part of. Aurora nodded. Me too. But we're not leaving Mama. Where she goes, we go. Then we stay, I said. But understand this, I addressed the crowd. We're not here to conform. We're not going to pretend to be something we're not just to make you comfortable. We are Omega and proud. We are different and powerful. And if that bothers you, that's your problem to solve, not ours. Some wolves looked angry. But others, especially some of the younger Omegas I saw in the crowd, looked inspired, hopeful, like maybe things could change. The festival resumed, though the atmosphere was different now. Tense, electric, full of possibility and danger. The visiting alphas approached me, curious about the Omega who'd survived exile and raised such extraordinary children. Some were respectful. Others were clearly trying to figure out how to use this situation to their advantage. Played the game. Smiled, chatted, built alliances. This was what I'd trained for, what I'd prepared for. I wasn't just a survivor anymore. I was a player in pack politics, and I was good at it. Marcus watched from a distance, not approaching. Not yet. The mate bond hummed between us, confused and complicated. We'd acknowledged each other but solved nothing. There was still so much hurt, so much damage, so much to work through. But that was a problem for another day. Tonight, I stood in the pack that had exiled me, holding my head high, my children beside me, and I felt victorious. Not because I'd gotten revenge, though that was satisfying, but because I'd proven something important. That Omegas weren't weak. That rejection didn't have to be the end. That you could be thrown away and still become something magnificent. The twins were surrounded by young wolves their age, all curious about these mysterious siblings who'd appeared out of nowhere. Maximus was demonstrating some fighting moves, already comfortable in the spotlight. Aurora was making friends just by being herself. Her empathic nature drawing people to her like moths to flame. They belonged here, I realized. Not because of their father or their bloodline, but because they were themselves. Strong, confident, unafraid. And they belonged with me wherever I went, whatever I did. Sybil appeared at my elbow, smiling her knowing smile. Well done, child. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. You're stronger than you think. You always were. She patted my arm. But the hard part isn't over. You've won the battle, but the war for acceptance, for real change, that's going to take time. I know. And Marcus. That's complicated. I know that too. Do you still love him? Thought about it. Really thought. I love who I thought he was. I love the man he could have been if he'd been braver. But the actual Marcus, the one who chose politics over me, I don't know. Maybe I could forgive him. Maybe we could build something new. But it would have to be completely different from what we had before. Cool. Honest. Real. And if he's not capable of that, then I don't need him. I've proven that. I have my children, my life, my power. He's just a bonus. Optional, not essential. Sybil laughed. Listen to you. The frightened little Omega who couldn't even imagine defying an Alpha. Look at you now. I looked around at the pack, at the life I'd fought so hard to reclaim, and I smiled. Yeah. Look at me now. The night wore on. Eventually, Marcus approached, hesitant in a way I'd never seen from him. Can we talk? He asked quietly. Privately. I considered saying no. Making him wait, making him suffer. But I was tired, and we needed to establish boundaries if this was going to work. Briefly, we walked to the edge of the square, away from the crowds. The mate bond pulled tighter the closer we got, and I could see Marcus fighting the same reaction I was. The urge to touch, to close the distance, to complete what had been started 7 years ago. I'm sorry. The words came out rushed, like he'd been holding them in for years. Livia, I'm so sorry. For everything. For being too weak to claim you. For exiling you. For all the years you spent alone because of my cowardice. Sorry doesn't give me back those years, I said quietly. Sorry doesn't erase the nights I almost died in those woods. Sorry doesn't change the fact that I raised our children alone while you played happy family with Kasha. I know, and I hate myself for it. I've hated myself for 7 years. Every day, wondering if you were alive, if you were safe, if you hated me as much as I hated myself. I did hate you, I admitted. Some days I still do. But mostly I just feel sad. Sad for what we could have had. Sad that you weren't strong enough to choose love over fear. I want to make it right. You can't. But you can move forward. You can be a father to those children. You can work to change this pack's attitude toward Omegas. You can use your power for something other than maintaining the status quo. And us. I looked at him, really looked at him. He was still handsome, still powerful. But he was also damaged, broken by his own choices, haunted by his regrets. I don't know. The mate bond is still there. Can feel it. But bonds can be wrong, Marcus. They can connect people who aren't good for each other. Just because the moon goddess paired us doesn't mean we're supposed to be together. But we could try, he said desperately. We could start over. I could show you I've changed, that I'm worthy of you and the children. Maybe. Someday. But not now. Right now I need to focus on Maximus and Aurora. On giving them stability and helping them navigate this new life. You can be part of that if you want. As their father. But as for us being mates again, that's going to take time. A lot of time. And a lot of proof that you've actually changed. He looked devastated but resigned. I understand. We'll wait. However long it takes. Don't wait for me, Marcus. Live your life. Figure out who you are beyond being Alpha. And if someday we find our way back to each other, great. If not, at least we'll both have become better people. I walked away before he could respond. Back to my children. Back to the life I'd built from nothing. The next few weeks were chaotic. The pack was divided on how to handle the situation. Some welcomed us, curious about the twins and willing to give Omega rights more consideration. Others resented us, saw us as a threat to the traditional order. There were challenges. Some of the higher-ranking wolves tested Maximus, trying to put him in his place. He beat every single one of them. Aurora faced different challenges. Social ones, wolves trying to manipulate or use her gifts. She handled them with grace and wisdom that made me proud. And I faced my own battles. Wolves who thought an Omega shouldn't have a voice in pack meetings. Wolves who tried to undermine me or spread rumors. Wolves who couldn't handle the idea that their entire worldview might be wrong. But we had allies too. The younger Omegas rallied around us, seeing hope for a better future. Some Betas and even Alphas from other packs reached out, interested in the changes we represented. And Sybil stayed nearby, offering guidance and occasionally intimidating people with her seer status. Marcus tried. I had to give him credit for that. He spent time with the twins, teaching Maximus about pack leadership and listening to Aurora's insights about the pack's emotional dynamics. He publicly defended Omega rights in council meetings. He started changing laws, slowly but steadily, to give lower-ranking wolves more protections and opportunities. Whether it was genuine change or just him trying to win me back, I couldn't say. Maybe both. Maybe it didn't matter as long as the results were good. As for me, I found my place. Not as Luna. I refused that title, refused to be defined by Marcus. But as a leader in my own right. An advocate for the forgotten wolves. Teacher of the old ways. A reminder that power came in many forms. 3 months after we returned, there was a full moon ceremony. The entire pack gathered to honor the goddess and celebrate the lunar cycle. It was also tradition for mates to affirm or complete their bonds during these ceremonies. Marcus found me before it started. Will you stand with me tonight? As my mate officially. Complete the bond. I'd known this question was coming. Had thought about it constantly. No, I said gently. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I need you to understand that I don't need the bond to be complete. I don't need to be your Luna to be important or powerful or worthy. I'm all those things already. I know that, he said, and he actually sounded like he meant it. But I want it. Not because it would make you worthy, but because, love you. I think I always have. I was just too stupid and scared to accept it. Love isn't enough, Marcus. Trust matters. Respect matters. Equality matters. And we don't have those things yet. We're building them slowly, but they're not there yet. Then I'll keep trying. I'll keep proving myself. However long it takes. You keep saying that. But maybe you should be doing this for yourself, not for me. Maybe you should be changing because you believe it's right, not because you want to win me back. He looked thoughtful. You're right. You're always right. That's one of the many reasons I love you. I smiled despite myself. Flattery will get you nowhere. Can't blame a wolf for trying. During the ceremony, I stood with my children rather than with Marcus. It was a statement, a reminder that my priority was them, not a mate bond. But I couldn't help noticing how Marcus looked at me across the fire, with longing and regret and hope all mixed together. After the ceremony, Aurora came to me. Mama, do you think you'll ever forgive him? Really forgive him? I don't know, my love. Some wounds run very deep. But you still feel the bond. Can sense it. It hurts you sometimes. Too perceptive. Yes, it does. But pain isn't always bad. Sometimes it reminds us of important lessons. Reminds us to be careful, to protect ourselves. Or sometimes it just keeps us from being happy, Maximus added, joining us. Father's trying, Mama. He really is. And he's changing the pack. Making it better. Isn't that worth something? It's worth a lot, I agreed. But forgiveness isn't something you give because someone deserves it. It's something you give when you're ready. When you've healed enough that you can let go of the anger without losing yourself. I'm not there yet. Will you ever be? Aurora asked softly. I hope so. Because carrying this much hurt is exhausting. But it has to happen naturally. Not because I'm forcing myself or because I feel obligated. The twins accepted that, though I could tell they hoped for a reunion. They loved Marcus, had bonded with him quickly despite everything. Part of me wondered if I was being stubborn, holding on to grudges for too long. But another part remembered the girl I'd been, frightened and alone in those woods, bleeding and exiled, thinking she was going to die. That girl deserved my loyalty. Deserved me standing firm and not letting anyone make me small again. The seasons changed. 6 months in the pack became a year. The twins thrived, growing stronger and more confident. They started training other young wolves, teaching them techniques I'd taught them, sharing the old knowledge. Pack changed too. Slowly, reluctantly, but definitely changing. Omegas started speaking up in meetings. Lower-ranking wolves started challenging unfair treatment. The rigid hierarchy that had seemed unbreakable began to flex, to accommodate new ideas. And Marcus changed most of all. He was humbler now, more thoughtful. He listened more than he commanded. He admitted when he was wrong, which was revolutionary for an alpha. He was becoming the leader he should have been from the start. One day, about 18 months after our return, he asked if we could take a walk. Just the two of us, no children, no pack members, no expectations. We walked into the woods. Not the territory where I'd been exiled, but the protected forests on the western border. It was peaceful, beautiful, the kind of place where you could actually think. "I need to tell you something," Marcus said as we reached a clearing. "And I need you to really hear me. Not just listen but hear what I'm saying." "All right. I've been doing a lot of thinking. A lot of soul-searching. With Sybil's help, actually. She's been counseling me, helping me understand why I made the choices I did. And I realized I was terrified of you. From the moment I felt the mate bond, I was afraid of how much power you'd have over me. How loving you would make me vulnerable. How admitting you were my mate would mean admitting that I didn't have complete control over my life, that fate had made a choice for me." He sat on a fallen log, and I joined him, keeping some distance between us. "I thought being alpha meant being invulnerable," he continued. "Meant never showing weakness, never admitting I needed anyone. So when the mate bond happened with someone the pack considered weak, someone who would make me look weak by association, I panicked. I chose the illusion of strength over actual strength." "What's actual strength?" he asked. "The way you survived exile and came back stronger. The way you put our children first always, even when it would have been easier to use them as weapons against me. The way you've changed this pack not through force but through example. That's strength." I didn't know what to say. This was the most honest Marcus had ever been with me. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "I don't even know if I deserve it. But I want you to know that I understand now. I understand what I lost, what I threw away, what I destroyed. And if I could go back and do it differently, I would in a heartbeat." "But you can't go back," I said quietly. "None of us can. We can only move forward." "Then let me move forward with you. Not as your alpha. Not as someone trying to control you or own you. But as your equal. Your partner. Your mate." The word hung in the air between us. The bond pulled, urging me to say yes, to complete what had been started so long ago. "I don't know if I trust you yet," I admitted. "I don't know if I ever will completely. You broke something in me when you exiled me, Marcus. Something fundamental. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn your trust back if you let me." "Why? Why does it matter so much? You could choose anyone now. Kasha's gone, you're free to make any alliance you want. You could find a strong alpha female who'd give you uncomplicated heirs and political advantages. Why keep trying for the Omega who makes everything difficult?" He looked at me with those golden eyes, and I saw straight to his soul. "Because you're the only one who makes me want to be better. The only one who challenges me, who sees through all my bullshit, who makes me feel like I'm more than just my position. And because I love you. Not because of the mate bond but because of who you are. Your strength, your compassion, your refusal to ever give up or give in." Tears were sliding down my cheeks now. Damn him for finding the right words. Damn him for making me feel hope when I'd worked so hard to protect myself. "I'm scared," I whispered. "Scared of getting hurt again. Scared of being that vulnerable girl who believed every promise you made. I'm scared too. Terrified. Because if I mess this up again, I lose everything that matters. Not the pack, not my position, but you and our children. The family I should have protected from the beginning." I wiped my eyes, trying to compose myself. "What are you asking for, Marcus? What do you actually want?" "A chance. Just a chance to prove I've changed. We don't have to complete the mate bond today or even this year. We don't have to live together or play happy family. Just let me court you. The right way this time. Openly, honestly, with respect. Court me. I almost laughed. We have 7-year-old twins. We're a bit past courting. Then let me show you who I've become. Who I'm still becoming. Let me earn you, Livia. Not as some prize to be won, but as a partner I've been lucky enough to be bonded to. I looked at him for a long moment, weighing everything. The hurt of the past against the possibility of the future. The safety of staying guarded against the risk of opening my heart again. All right, I said finally. You get your chance. But understand this. I'm not the girl you exiled. I'm not someone who'll worship you or defer to you or make myself smaller to make you comfortable. If we do this, it's as equals or not at all. Equals, he agreed immediately. I wouldn't want it any other way. Not anymore. And if at any point I feel like you're reverting, like you're treating me as less than, we're done. No second chances after this second chance. Understood. And the twins come first. Always. If they're uncomfortable with us being together, if it hurts them in any way, I walk away. They're my priority. They're my priority too, Marcus said. I've missed 7 years of their lives. I won't miss any more because I'm too proud or stupid to do what's right. I nodded slowly. Then we'll try. Slowly. Carefully. And we'll see what happens. The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise, warm and hopeful and beautiful. He reached for my hand, hesitant, asking permission with his eyes. I let him take it, felt the spark of the mate bond intensify at the contact. Felt right. Terrifyingly right. We walked back to the pack house hand in hand, and I could feel the gossip starting before we even entered the clearing. By nightfall, everyone would know that the Alpha and his exiled mate were attempting a reconciliation. Let them talk. I'd stopped caring what people thought about me a long time ago. The twins were waiting when we got back, and their faces lit up when they saw us together. Does this mean? Maximus started. It means your father and I are going to try, I said carefully. Try to see if we can build something healthy and good. But it's going to take time, and there are no guarantees. But there's hope, Aurora said, smiling. That's enough. She was right. Hope was enough. Hope was everything. The next few months were strange and wonderful and occasionally frustrating. Marcus courted me like I was some rare treasure he was afraid to break. He'd bring me flowers from the forest, remember my favorite foods, ask about my day like he genuinely cared about the answer. He also backed off when I needed space, respected my boundaries, never pushed for more than I was ready to give. Slowly, so slowly I barely noticed it happening, I started to trust him again. Started to believe that maybe this version of Marcus was real, was permanent, was someone I could actually build a life with. We'd have long conversations late at night about pack politics, about the changes we wanted to implement, about how to raise our children to be strong without being arrogant. He listened to my ideas, actually listened, and implemented many of them. The pack continued to evolve. More Omegas were taking leadership roles. The rigid hierarchy was becoming more flexible, more merit-based. It wasn't perfect. There was still resistance, still wolves who clung to the old ways. But it was progress. Other packs started noticing. Some mocked us, said we'd gone soft. Others were intrigued, sent representatives to observe our changes, see if they could implement similar reforms in their territories. We were becoming something new. Something better. And Marcus and I were becoming something new too. Not the passionate, secret affair we'd had before. Something steadier, deeper, built on mutual respect and genuine partnership. 2 years after our return, on another full moon ceremony, Marcus asked the question again. Will you complete the mate bond with me? Will you be my Luna, not because of politics or obligation, but because we choose each other? This time I said yes. The ceremony was beautiful. The entire pack witnessed as we spoke the ancient words, as the bond snapped fully into place, as we became truly and irrevocably mated. I felt it in every cell of my body, this connection to Marcus that went beyond physical or emotional. It was spiritual, primal, complete. And for the first time since he'd exiled me all those years ago, I felt whole. The twins were ecstatic. They'd been waiting for this, hoping for it, and now they had what every child wants, a complete family. That night, after the celebrations, Marcus and I stood together looking out over the packlands. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for giving me another chance. For not giving up on me even when I'd given up on myself. Thank you for becoming someone worth coming back to," I replied. "For changing not just for me, but for yourself and our children and the pack. I love you, Livia." I should have said it 7 years ago. Should have shouted it from the rooftops instead of hiding in shame. But I'm saying it now, and I'll say it every day for the rest of our lives. "I love you too," I admitted. I tried not to. Tried to protect myself. But the heart wants what it wants. We stood there in comfortable silence, the mate bond humming contentedly between us. "You know," Marcus said after a while, "there's a story the elders tell about the first Alpha and his Omega mate. How she saved the packs when he was too proud to listen to her wisdom. How she became the greatest Luna in history not despite being Omega, but because of it. I've heard that story. I think you're like her. I think generations from now, they'll tell stories about the Omega who was exiled and came back stronger, who changed the packs forever, who proved that power comes in many forms." Smiled. "Then let's make sure it's a good story. One with a happy ending." "And what's a happy ending look like to you?" Thought about it. About everything we'd been through, everything we'd overcome, everything we'd built. "This," I said finally. "A pack where every wolf is valued regardless of rank. Children who know their worth. A mate who respects and cherishes me. The freedom to be myself without fear. This is my happy ending. Then let's protect it. Together." "Together," I agreed. And we did. For the rest of our long lives, Marcus and I ruled the Silver Moon Pack as true partners. We raised Maximus and Aurora to be strong, compassionate leaders who would continue our work. We changed laws, challenged traditions, and proved that Omegas could be just as powerful as Alphas, sometimes more so. There were still hard days. Still conflicts and challenges and moments when I wondered if we'd made the right choice. But we faced them together, as equals, as partners, as mates who'd fought too hard for each other to ever take what we had for granted. Maximus eventually became Alpha, with his sister as his most trusted advisor. They led with wisdom beyond their years, continuing the reforms we'd started, spreading the message to other packs that strength came from unity, not hierarchy. And sometimes on quiet nights, I'd think back to that terrified girl stumbling through the woods, pregnant and alone, thinking her life was over. If I could go back and tell her anything, I'd tell her this. The worst moment of your life is about to become the catalyst for the best things that ever happened to you. The exile that was meant to destroy you will forge you into something stronger than anyone imagined. The Alpha who threw you away will spend the rest of his life grateful you gave him another chance. And those 2 tiny sparks of life you're carrying, they're going to change the world. Because sometimes the greatest power comes not from being born strong, but from surviving what should have broken you and choosing to use that experience to lift others up. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't revenge. It's becoming so magnificent that the person who hurt you realizes exactly what they lost. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they get the chance to make it right. I was one of the lucky ones. I got my revenge and my redemption. I got to prove my worth and reclaim my mate. I got to raise my children in a world that was slowly learning to see Omega strength for what it really was. But most importantly, I got to prove to myself that I was never nothing. Never worthless. Never deserving of exile. I was always powerful. Always valuable. Always enough. Marcus just needed 7 years to figure out what I'd known all along. And our children, Maximus and Aurora, the twin heirs who made their father bow. They grew up knowing their worth from day one. Knowing that rank was arbitrary, that power came in many forms, that love required courage. They never had to learn the hard lessons I did. Never had to survive exile to prove their strength. Never had to question whether they mattered. Because I made sure they knew every single day that they were loved, that they were valued, that they were the greatest gifts the moon goddess ever gave me. Marcus drove me from the pack as nothing. cast me out to die, alone and afraid. But I carried the twin heirs who would make him bow, who would change everything, who would prove that Omega blood could produce the strongest wolves the packs had ever seen. And in the end, I didn't just survive his rejection. I transcended it. I became more than he ever imagined I could be. More than I ever imagined I could be. Became legend. The Omega who refused to die. The mother who raised warriors. The Luna who changed the world. And Marcus. He spent the rest of his life grateful that I'd given him the chance to be part of that story. That I'd let him stand beside me instead of leaving him behind in the wasteland of his own regrets. Because that's the thing about exile. It's meant to destroy you. Meant to erase you from existence. Make you disappear like you never mattered. But if you survive it, if you refuse to let it break you, you come back so strong that the world has no choice but to acknowledge you. You come back powerful enough to make even alphas bow. And that's exactly what I did. So to anyone listening who's ever been thrown away, cast out, told they were nothing, remember this story. Remember that exile can be the beginning, not the end. That rejection can be the catalyst for transformation. That the person who underestimates you today might spend the rest of their life regretting it. And that you, whoever you are, whatever rank or status or circumstance you were born into, are so much more than anyone else's opinion of you. You are enough. You always were. You just have to survive long enough to prove it. That's my story. The story of how I went from nothing to everything. How I turned the worst day of my life into the foundation for the best life I could imagine. How I carried the twin heirs who made their father bow. And how I learned that the greatest revenge is becoming so undeniably magnificent that the person who hurt you has no choice but to see it. To feel it. To live with it for the rest of their days. Marcus drove me from the pack as nothing. But I came back as everything. And that made all the difference.